Have you ever actually thought about where your medication really comes from? I mean, when you pick up a prescription, you're not just grabbing a bottle. You're holding the end result of one of the most complex, heavily targeted logistics networks on the planet. Today, we're diving into the hidden vulnerabilities of the pharmaceutical supply chain. We're going to examine that critical, often completely unseen journey a drug takes before it ever lands in your hands.
Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're pulling back the curtain on drug supply chain integrity. We're looking at this massive infrastructure of pharmaceutical distribution, but not just as a standard business operation. This is literally a high-stakes battleground for patient safety. Effective supply chain management here is absolutely essential. It's what prevents catastrophic, incredibly costly recalls, and it preserves that fragile brand trust that major drug retailers totally rely on to survive.
Because here's the thing, a drug doesn't just travel straight from a local factory directly to your pharmacy shelf. It's way more complicated than that. The industry relies on incredibly vast and complex distribution networks. We're talking about active pharmaceutical ingredients crossing international borders, changing hands through multiple third-party logistics providers, and navigating these massive wholesale networks. And every single node, every transfer, every extra mile added to that chain, well, that introduces a potential point of failure where something could go catastrophically wrong. To ground our investigation today, we're using the official SASB Sustainability Accounting Standards, specifically the healthcare sector standards for drug retailers. This acts as our forensic framework. It provides the exact audit trail that institutional investors and major companies use to track the safety and sustainability of retail pharmacy operations. It's pretty much our definitive map for uncovering exactly how drug retailers protect you, the end consumer.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the hidden supply chain.
You know, the threat profile in this network is surprisingly broad. A compromised drug isn't necessarily something cooked up in some illicit underground lab. According to the standards, it could simply be a totally legitimate pharmaceutical that suffered a manufacturing error, or mislabeling, improper packaging, or even just temperature abuse while it was in transit. So even a legally manufactured drug, if it's handled incorrectly, becomes a compromised one, posing a severe health and safety hazard.
But then we have a much more malicious, highly targeted threat, and that's counterfeit drugs. These are drugs explicitly sold under a product name without proper authorization, where the source identity is intentionally mislabeled. They're trying to deceive the buyer into thinking it's an authentic, approved product. And a really critical detail here is that counterfeiting doesn't just apply to those super expensive brand name medications, it applies to everyday generic products too. Honestly, no category is entirely immune from this deception.
If a counterfeit actually breaches the chain and makes it to the retail level, the consumer is unwittingly playing Russian roulette. The product might lack the active ingredient entirely, leaving a critical medical condition completely untreated. Or it might contain an excessive quantity, triggering a massive overdose. Or, worst of all, it might contain a completely toxic substitute altogether, wrapped up in highly convincing fake packaging. The stakes for patient safety here are absolute. There is zero room for error.
Moving on to Section 2, the reality of recalls. So what happens when a compromised or counterfeit drug actually is discovered out in the market? Well, the primary mechanism for protecting the public is the product safety recall. Think of this as the entire system's emergency brake. It's the immediate action taken to remove a product from the market due to potential or actual adverse health consequences. For drug retailers, tracking the total number of safety recalls and the total units recalled is a really vital metric of brand health. A high frequency of recalls can totally devastate consumer trust, while a failure to pull that emergency brake fast enough, well, that can literally cost lives. Now, under the umbrella of a recall, there are actually two distinct types of regulatory actions. You've got removal and you've got correction. Removal is exactly what it sounds like, the physical extraction of the product away from its point of use to another location so it can be destroyed, inspected, or maybe repaired. Correction, on the other hand, involves repairing, modifying, or relabeling the product right where it is, without physically relocating it. Both are severe actions, though, and they indicate that regulatory authorities consider the product to be in strict violation of health laws. And when a notable recall hits, especially ones affecting a massive number of units or tragically tied to serious illnesses and fatalities, retailers have to conduct deep forensics of the fallout. They aren't just counting boxes in a warehouse. They track the root cause, the financial bleeding required to remedy the issue, whether the action was voluntary or a forced legal mandate, and of course the ultimate legal fallout. It is a rigorous, top-to-bottom post-mortem of a supply chain failure.
There's also a pretty fascinating modern dynamic at play here when it comes to store brand or private label products. Because these items make up a growing portion of retail sales, the standards require retailers to specifically measure the percentage of total recalled units that were their own private label products. This is huge because when a private label product is compromised, the retailer can't just point fingers upstream at someone else. Their own brand is taking the direct hit.
Which brings us to Section 3, securing the pharmacy counter. To fight back against these enormous risks, retailers don't just rely on a single checkpoint at the loading dock. That wouldn't be nearly enough. Instead, they deploy a comprehensive defense-in-depth strategy. This means conducting aggressive, in-person vendor inspections and continuous supply chain audits. It means relying on high-tech, barcode traceability systems to map a medication's exact coordinates at all times. And it involves implementing rapid alert networks and active, ongoing coordination with law enforcement to intercept illicit shipments long before they ever reach consumers.
In this whole defense strategy, it's backed by a rigid, unyielding legal gauntlet. Retailers are mandated by strict jurisdictional laws to maintain practically flawless systems for product identification, product tracing, and rigorous product verification. We're not merely talking about a set of industry best practices here. It is a strict legal mandate to ensure rapid detection and quarantine of suspicious products, requiring immediate notification to authorities and really strict licensing protocols. So, the very next time you are at the pharmacy counter, take a second to consider the hidden journey of that small bottle or box. Behind that simple little label is a massive, relentless battle for supply chain integrity. It's an ongoing, incredibly high-stakes investigation powered by strict audits, high-tech tracking, and the constant readiness for swift recalls. All of it is designed to ensure that what heals you doesn't end up harming you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep asking the hard questions about those critical systems running silently in the background.